Well, hello there, and welcome to the podcast that must not be named. I'm Melissa.
I am Luke.
We are here with the final chapter of Harry Potter
yeah.
and the Prisoner of Azkaban, chapter number 22. I'll post again. This chapter was 20 pages long, and 6.47% of the book.
And now, a voice of the Imaginary Legion.
Bird Mail Revisited. Time has turned and 10 minutes are left. Harry and Hermione find themselves swiftly moving back towards the hospital wing when they overhear conversation regarding the kiss. Fudge, now certain the Black affair has been resolved, prattles on about interviews for the Prophet. Harry and Hermione creep back and connect with Dumbledore just as he is prepared to lock the hospital wing door. Harry affirms their accomplishment, and Dumbledore affirms their departure. They quickly take their places back in bed as Madame Pomfrey resumes their care. Harry and Hermione take their chocolate without a fuss, and their nerves are all aflutter. A conflagration of anger bellows upstairs. Fudge blusters on about disapprobation, and Snape reminds him that it is impossible inside of Hogwarts. As Dumbledore, Fudge, and Snape hastily return to the hospital wing, Snape immediately accuses Harry of being Sirius's accomplice. Dumbledore strikes that idea by indicating that he locked the students in the hospital wing. Madame Pomfrey concurs. Fudge, off-put by Snape's rash behavior, rapidly brings the conversation back to how this incident blots both the office of Minister of Magic and his character. Fudge begins remarking on the unexpected behavior of the Dementors. He's the only one who didn't expect it. And Dumbledore's request for the immediate removal of the Dementors from Hogwarts. Once all of the hullabaloo dies down, Ron awakens, confused as usual. Upon leaving the hospital wing, Harry, Ron, and Hermione wander the grounds and reflect on the events of last evening. As they pass the lake, Harry thinks of his Patronus. Hagrid sidles up, cheery and excited to share the news that Buckbeak has escaped. The students feign interest so as not to reveal their hand in the escape. In the midst of Hagrid's euphoria, he shares the news of Lupin's departure. Harry interrupts Hagrid's news with his astonishment over the resignation and goes off to see Lupin. Lupin continues to pack as he explains that Snape let it slip that he was a werewolf. He explains to Harry that student safety must remain at the forefront, and having a werewolf on the grounds will not sit well with parents. He reflects on his pride in the growth Harry has made as a student and discusses his animagus prongs. Lupin returns the Invisibility Cloak and the Marauders map. Dumbledore informs Lupin that his carriage has arrived, and Lupin makes a hasty retreat. A melancholy Harry thinks the events of last night had a zero-sum game. Dumbledore counters by indicating that uncovering the truth, saving an innocent man, and several lives make quite the difference. Harry remembers Professor Trelawney's exceptionally odd behavior, and a bemused Dumbledore remarks that it may have been an actual prediction and she deserves a pay raise. Harry is still uncertain of the worth of his actions and how they may lead to the return of Voldemort. Dumbledore expounds upon the complexity of turning time and changing fate, Pedigree being a servant of Voldemort indebted to Harry for his life, and the deepest bonds of magic. Harry trusts Dumbledore with his very intimate thought of seeing his father when he performed the Patronus charm, and Dumbledore, in his most profound wisdom, indicates that Harry's father lives on in Harry and reveals himself when Harry needs him most. Results from exams are in. All have passed, some higher than others, and students consider who might teach Defense Against the Dark Arts next term. The Hogwarts Express pulls out, and Hermione shares that she has returned the Time Turner and has dropped Muggle studies and divination. Harry laments returning to the Dursleys, and Ron starts planning for Harry's visit so they can go to the World Cup. Harry's spirits rise when a little fluff of an owl brings him news from Sirius. Sirius reveals that he used Crookshanks to help him purchase Harry's firebolt. He also sends a note that gives Harry permission to visit Hogsmeade. Sirius suggests that Ron keep the owl in exchange for Scabbers, aka Wormtail. Ron allows Crookshanks to make sure the owl is just an owl, and Harry thinks upon happier times to come. Back at King's Cross, Mrs. Weasley provides a warm hug and welcome for Harry. Mr. Dursley scowls. Harry reveals to his uncle that his godfather, convicted of murder and a jail escapee, likes to check in on Harry periodically and make sure he's happy. The horror on Mr. Dursley's face confirms that this summer is definitely looking up.
All right, Luke, so it looks like last chapter we introduced some new characters, though.
Yeah. This is kind of officially meeting the giant squid, right?
Yes.
They were walking down and they, I guess, visually saw it and somewhat interacted with it, I believe. And
Still not named.
And, well, yeah.
Much like a podcast.
Just like podcasts should be. And we also have a new tiny owl for Ron.
Crookshanks approved.
Crookshanks seal of approval. Paw of approval.
We didn't really go anywhere new.
No, not really. This definitely jumped around in several different areas, but I feel like we've been to all of them.
Yeah. And we got an official title for something.
The Quidditch World Cup. We heard that the World Cup was coming up at the beginning of this book, in the Leaky Cauldron chapter, but this is officially titling it the Quidditch World Cup, as opposed to, the Gobstones World Cup, which they were getting their firebolts pre-ordered for.
All right. What were some of your thoughts here?
Illustration.
Oh, we do. I always forget the illustration. How dare I? And it's a tiny owl with the letter labeled Harry Potter.
Yeah, definitely looks pretty small. I mean, for the size of an envelope to be kind of dwarfing it almost, or like similar size at least.
I like, this is going to sound really dumb, the little swoopy lines to make it look like it's flying.
Mm-hmm. The action illustration.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Better than some of the other action illustrations we've seen in this book.
I agree. It's nice. It's a decent looking tiny owl.
What were some of your thoughts here on chapter 22?
So Fudge and Snape, that's where this chapter opens up, and Snape is just the worst. God, he's just terrible. I hate him. He's basically just saying, we got to make sure that they perform the kiss immediately so that nothing happens and so that Dumbledore doesn't interfere. Like, what? God, you're just the worst.
He is kind of the worst. Although I would say my first note kind of goes along with, I'm so happy he doesn't get his way.
Well, yeah, absolutely.
That's fantastic.
Absolutely. It's just, you spent the last, past day, however many chapters that ended up being for us.
Years and years of chapters in one day.
Literally months of podcasting at this point. And you just still cannot even fathom the idea that what everyone else was saying could potentially be true, to even question it. You're the worst. You're terrible. I hate you.
So close-minded.
I know. And just so, blood in the water, seeing red and just not, ears are not involved anymore.
No.
And kind of right around there, they walk, Snape and Fudge kind of walk off, and Hermione and Harry are overhearing this, and then they're walking back to the hospital wing and they see Peeves, and so they quickly jump into like a side room, and Hermione has her ear to the door, and it goes, "Oh, he's horrible," whispered Hermione, her ear to the door. "I bet he's all excited because the Dementors are coming to finish off Sirius." I like the fact that it's left a little bit ambiguous that she's definitely talking about Peeves, but it totally applies to Snape too. Like, it's just because she never says like, "Oh, Peeves is terrible." It's clearly talking about Peeves, but in how frustrated I am with Snape right now, he's horrible.
See, I never read it that she was talking about Peeves. I always thought it was about Snape.
Oh, well, I mean, Peeves is bouncing down super excited because there's negative tension in the air, basically.
Interesting.
Oh, so I've always thought
it was Snape. Like, I'm going to hide from Peeves, but let's talk about what we just overheard with Snape.
Okay.
I guess the he is ambiguous. It's really hard.
And that's what I like that, because I've never read it as she's talking about Snape. Well, that thing I can remember realizing, but I actively was like, I'm going to go ahead and say she's talking about Snape this time. In my canon, she's talking about Snape on this reread.
Done.
Other times it's Peeves. This time, Snape.
It's usually Snape for me. Can I talk about, so they get back to Madame Pomfrey, right? And, they're sitting quietly. They take their chocolate. I like that. They say, they thought it was best to just accept their chocolate quietly.
Yeah.
Like, we're not going to say anything, even though it's been now hours and hours and hours since we've had the Dementor attack. But you can hear from like the hall, Snape's reaction to finding out Sirius is gone. And it goes like this. "He didn't disapparate," Snape roared, now very close at hand. "You can't apparate or disapparate inside this castle. This has something to do with Potter." Oh, I love it, because he's not actually wrong. Mm-hmm. Except it couldn't have been Potter, because Potter never left the hospital wing in the 5 minutes since he did.
Technically, no, he didn't, because he was back.
There was a Potter in the hospital wing the entire time.
Yep, that's true.
But it's also true that he's right.
It's pedantically true, but it's true. But he's also correct that it's absolutely Harry.
Yes.
And I have almost that same thing noted, and it's just before that when they're accepting their chocolate, and it says, and then they both took a fourth piece of chocolate from Madame Pomfrey. They heard a distant roar of fury echoing from somewhere above them. I mean, this is like a long way off of this huge castle, right? And sound doesn't translate through walls, especially stone castle walls.
Right.
Like at all.
No.
These aren't thin drywall hotel rooms.
Right, right.
This is a sturdy built castle. The acoustics, this is loud.
So what do you think's making that noise?
Oh, it's Snape.
I thought it was the Dementors.
Oh no, I've taken that as basically Snape already being furious, and then they start walking back to the hospital wing, and that's when we can start understanding what he's saying.
See, I thought it was first the Dementors that fudge, and then we heard the angry voices.
Okay, yeah,
That's how I've always read it.
I don't know if we've ever been given evidence that the Dementors make any sound, right?
I don't know.
We'll have to track that. I don't think we've had any in this book.
At least not that we've noticed, like that has stood out.
And other than maybe like movement sounds, like, the swish, but I don't think we've had, like, I feel like they're silent.
I don't know.
We'll have to
I've never
keep
assumed
our
they were silent.
ears open on that one.
All right.
But,
I'm gonna have to read this book again. Oh, darn.
Oh, good thing we have our full group book discussion coming
There
up.
you go.
So that's perfect timing. And kind of in that, so Snape doesn't get his way.
Yay.
And that's
Big
just
fan.
good for everyone. And even Fudge is like, whoa, didn't see it going to that level. Like, it's one thing to, kind of have like the reward taken away from you, but this is a little over the top, right? I mean, he's like, Albus, like, this is a little much. This fella seems a little unbalanced. And Dumbledore's like, oh, he's not unbalanced. He's just suffered a great disappointment. Yeah, taking an innocent man's soul. Like, gosh,
so
he's
ready for it.
He's the worst. Snape is the worst.
You think?
I do think Snape is the worst.
Okay. I don't think he's the worst. I think he's
In
one
certain,
of the worst.
certain ways, he's the worst.
All right. Well, you know what? We can discuss that at our end of book spectacular, where
Yeah.
we have to pick our worst character, and we'll see if you pick Snape.
We'll see if I do.
All right. I am really thankful that Dumbledore convinced Fudge to remove the Dementors, that we don't have to
I
deal
agree.
with them anymore. So they were kind of annoying and in the way.
Yeah, definitely. And in that discussion as well, he says perhaps dragons will, guard. We'll get some dragons next year. And,
Oh, yeah. That's
and,
great.
and Dumbledore was like, oh, Hagrid would like that. And it's true. I think that'd be easier to manage than these things that are so rogue. At least from what we can tell, they've attacked the Quidditch game against Hufflepuff. I mean, they've been kind of given a free reign.
I don't disagree that Dementors were hard to manage, but dragons, like they're not, guard dogs. They're dragons. They're bigger and scarier and big. And I don't think Hagrid can manage a fleet of dragons by himself.
I guess we'll have to see. My question.
I would like a fleet of dragons.
I would like a fleet of dragons. Dragon has 3 heads. Anyway, what is Fluffy doing these days?
Right?
Why doesn't Fluffy just guard the entrance?
Or at least part of guarding.
Right,
Like,
yeah, give him some duties. Dogs like to have a job.
and
They
that's
like,
a lot of dog.
That's a lot of 3-headed dog. The dog has the 3 heads.
Oh, that fits.
Yeah, see?
It's not quite the fleet of dragons, but it is.
It's a fleet of dog heads.
That's right. And it's 3. All right.
And-
Nope, I'm a big fan.
Kind of also in that conversation with Fudge and Dumbledore, Fudge is really worried about his own political image here, about Black, and don't even mention the hippogriff. Like, we cannot let that get out, that we botched 2 executions, for lack of a better term,
Right.
today. I'll just leave that there. Pretty self-serving.
Hey, look, sounds like a politician.
Sounds like a politician.
Moving on.
So we get to Hagrid, this is, I guess, the next day, kind of, and basically Hagrid just, like, straight up blurts out, oh, Lupin was, glad he didn't eat any children last night. And Harry and Hermione are like, does everyone know that he's, like, a werewolf
Wait,
now?
what
Like,
did we miss?
like,
we know.
yeah, we know, but
We
we're
don't know
also,
that you
like,
know.
pretty good about knowing who should know this. And I just think it's funny that we kind of have a hearkening back to Hagrid potentially saying more than he should. But in his defense, the whole school knows at this point.
Right.
But it's
He
just kind of
doesn't know
funny.
that they don't know that everybody knows.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you were right. That's correct.
Sorry, I'm
You're
tracking
working
with my
through it.
eyes back
Yeah,
and forth.
He does not know that they don't know that literally everyone in the school has figured that out or
Even
been
though
told that at this
they
point.
knew it.
And they were the first to know.
Yes.
And I just think it's kind of funny
Yeah,
for
I agree.
Hagrid to do it for them.
And I feel like enough time has passed since Hagrid has been our plot device information
Or
passer
rug to beat on.
that this one doesn't bother me.
Yeah.
It's fine that Hagrid said something.
This is perfect. This is almost like
this
a commentary.
Is where you use Hagrid.
Yeah. This is almost like a JK commentary back to, yeah, this was a thing in book 1. This is a better way to do it.
Yeah. Yes, I got better at this. Here, let me show you how I'm better.
Let me not just beat this dead unicorn.
Yep. All right, so Lupin's leaving.
Yeah, that's expected, do you think? Or how did you feel about it when you first found out that he was
devastated because he's the best.
He is the best.
Like the best. Like the best teacher he's ever had besides McGonagall. And the most caring, he's just a good teacher and a friend of his dad's.
Yeah. Harry is definitely losing more than a teacher here.
Yes.
He's losing what I'm going to say is his first real mentor. And Hagrid has been close to that at times, but it's more big brotherly, uncle fun.
And Dumbledore is definitely like an inspiring, but not around enough to be somebody
this is like the one-on-one
and talk to.
Yeah, and that's exactly what Lupin could actually be for Harry. Which
I feel bad.
Yeah, I feel bad for Harry. I feel bad for Lupin too, because it seemed like he was enjoying,
and he was really good at it.
He was really good at it.
And I think the kids really liked him. I mean,
yeah, they definitely responded well. It seemed
barring Draco, who hates everyone. But,
yeah.
All right. So, but we are out a Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher. I like that Dean came up with the suggestion that next year's teacher might be a vampire.
I mean, that's the logical jump, right?
Why not?
That or like
we've had a Voldy head.
Yeah.
We've had Smarmy Lockhart. There he is. Mentioned. Check.
Yep.
We've had a werewolf. Now we need a vampire. I think that's a great call.
That or like a mummy. You could go mummy. You could maybe go giant spider. We got Aragog in the woods, right?
We do.
Maybe see if he's available.
I'm a big fan of the vampire first.
Okay. All right. That's fine.
I go vampire.
Night classes.
You'd have to move it to maybe not night classes.
A PM schedule though.
Maybe not. You might be able to do it in the daytime, but it's going to have to be like...
Depends on what her rules on vampires would be.
Or the room. I'm thinking more location. You might need to relocate Defense Against the Dark Arts to an empty dungeon room.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Fair enough.
Can we talk about the prediction?
Sure.
Because
talk about the prediction.
Harry finally tells somebody she made one. Oh, by the way, all this craziness happened. But before that, on that same day, Trelawney said this, and Dumbledore, like his reaction's like, wow, she made a real prediction. I'm going to give her a raise because that's 2.
Right.
Ever.
Hey, I can't falter. It's good on her.
Well, or good on him for recognizing it. I guess my question is, for true seers, how often does one get real predictions?
I don't know.
What is the lifetime
success rate?
Yes.
I mean, even she, in that first class that we have her, she says, this is one of the most complicated branches of magic. And I agree. I mean, I think divination in general it's hard to do. It's hard to prove. It's hard to learn. She's basically saying it's almost impossible to learn unless you've got the sight of some sort. And, I don't know. I'm sure there are some that are a lot more, successful in their seeing abilities. But I mean, if you have 2 true ones, I feel like that's still better, especially if it's something this big. Like, it makes me really wonder what the other one that Dumbledore is giving her credit on.
Yeah.
Is it the Neville breaking the cup? is that one of them? Was that the first one? I don't know. It's interesting to see her get one though. And I like that Dumbledore is giving her credit for it.
Right. All right. Harry does some deep thoughts in this chapter. One of them is the being disappointed about not leaving the Dursleys. Like, because for the first time ever, going back to the Dursleys wasn't guaranteed. It's always like this thing hanging in the background, like, oh, I gotta back to the Dursleys. But like, it is what it is. And this time it didn't have to be. And it just a little soul crushing. Not a whole soul crush, but like just a little disheartening.
Yeah.
It makes going back a little harder this year.
Yeah, I agree. Because there's never been another option or even the thought of another option before. And the rug is really pulled out from underneath him here. But he does, he can take some solace in knowing that he helped free Sirius.
Yes.
He helped him not necessarily gain exoneration. He's not free of the charges against him, but at least he can have some independence in his own life.
Yeah.
Regardless of if it's legal freedom at this point. And he can feel good about that. I think that's like the only thing he can really kind of hang his hat on to kind of take some of that pain away, which for Harry, I think is exactly his character. He would feel good about that.
Yes.
Rather than the selfish thing of being forced to go back to the Dursleys.
He can feel the selfish thing, but it's okay because of this other good thing.
Yep. Offsetting penalties. Yep. Harry also, he starts talking about when he saw the stag, right? And we learn that the stag is basically the embodiment of what James Potter was when he was transformed as an animagus. And that's why they called him Prongs. Right. So, harkening back to our 5 burning questions, what was Harry's dad? But Harry basically, calls himself out. He was like, it was stupid thinking that it was James that actually cast the Patronus that saved them all. And Dumbledore's like, no, that's not dumb at all. Like, one, you look a lot like him. Like, that's just true. You just do. Okay. And two, this is one of those big lines that,
You think the dead we loved ever truly leave us? You think we don't recall them more clearly than ever in times of great trouble? Your father is alive in you, Harry, and shows himself most plainly when you have need of him. How else could you produce that particular Patronus? Prongs rode again last night.
And then he goes on, last night Sirius told me all about how they became Animagi, said Dumbledore smiling, an extraordinary achievement, not least keeping it quiet from me. And then I remembered the most unusual form your Patronus took when it charged Mr. Malfoy at your Quidditch match against Ravenclaw. So you did see your father last night, Harry. You found him in yourself. That's just awesome. And that's, I think, one of the big tenets of this story of, death is a real thing, but that doesn't mean you lose the memory or the impressions that person has built, that those people had put on you.
Right.
And that makes it still real. So buck up, Harry. You got him. He's yours to commemorate and yours to live with, and that's a special thing.
I'm going to change topics slightly here.
Sure.
Hermione got 320% on
the Muggle Studies exam.
Okay. How is that even possible? She would have had to take the 3 different versions of the test.
Well, she probably time turned back and took it 3 times.
I mean, she had to have.
Right.
You cannot get, I can almost see 105, 110. You get everything right plus the bonus question. Fine.
Or
320?
That's a hell of a curve that everyone else did so terrible.
She literally had to take the test 3 times. It is 3 whole tests there.
Yeah, I guess you can't really curve over 200%, right?
No.
That doesn't make sense at all.
300% is 3 holes plus another 5th. That is a lot of tests.
It's a lot of tests.
For nothing. That's a dumb number.
It's excessive.
And I get it. He was exaggerating. But 320%.
Was he exaggerating? I don't know if he was. I feel like that's probably what she got. And the test design is just bizarre.
Okay, well, this goes back to my curriculum oversight and assessment issues. All right, that's all. Just a mini drop on the 320%. But thank goodness Hermione dropped some classes because I don't think we could stand another year of Hermione like this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't think she could. And she kind of says that. She's like, I just can't do this. I would rather be a normal human again.
Well, normal for her.
Yeah, and she, again, last book 2, she was better. That was what I put as the best Hermione that we've seen yet, because she wasn't trying to prove herself in this new magical world as a Muggleborn who wants to do really well. And so half the book, she's just annoying and the worst. But then she becomes great, towards the end of the book. Book 2, she's just that the whole book.
Yes.
She's so good that they have to take her out of the story for a couple chapters just to make sure that Harry can do something.
Hermione and everything and the 7 years with dumb boys.
Right. And then this book, JK overloads her so much that it's a burden and she can't be overpowered.
Yeah.
So now, book 4, here comes good Hermione full force, I get hope.
Excellent. It'll be great.
Percy had got his top grade newts, NEWTs. Fred and George had scraped a handful of OWLs each. Gryffindor House, meanwhile, largely thanks to their spectacular performance in the Quidditch Cup, had won the house championship for the 3rd year running. 3 in a row. 3-peat. There it is. And I feel like there was also a mention of Harry and Hermione and Ron just getting loaded with more points again, but I feel like that's just understood at this point, that Dumbledore was just like, and House Cup to Gryffindor.
1,000 points to Gryffindor.
100 million points for Gryffindor. It's great. I would love to be at school at the same time as Harry Potter. No, it would stink. It'd be terrible. It'd be like, oh, why are we even trying to do good? We're not going to have a chance at the House Cup.
You might as well do the worst. I mean, not necessarily schooling, but being a good student and well-behaved is right out the window. So you might as well go do crazy stuff.
Yeah.
Because it's not going to change anything.
Right. I mean, hopefully that's not the only motivation for wanting to do well in class.
What? Not necessarily in class, but behave behaving out in the normal, oh, you lose 5 points for being in the hallway at the wrong time. Okay.
Neat. Okay. Don't care.
I'm 5 million points behind Gryffindor. Doesn't really matter.
Even if we were ahead, wouldn't matter.
'Cause
Harry's going to save the day at the end of the book and get the house cup.
And I could try to save the day, but won't matter.
Won't matter.
I'm not Harry Potter.
Because I'm going to get taken out by a basilisk on the way.
Right. Oh, my last big note is Sirius's letter and all the feels.
Oh, yeah.
It was so good.
Yeah, it was so good. And you want to read it for us?
I can. I know how to read.
She is quite good at reading.
I'm going to read the whole letter minus the interruptions. I'm just going to read the letter.
Just read the text.
Here we go. Dear Harry, I hope this finds you before you reach your aunt and uncle. I don't know whether they're used to owl post. Buckbeak and I are hiding. I won't tell you where, in case this owl falls into the wrong hands. I have some doubt about his reliability, but he is the best I could find, and he did seem eager for the job. I believe the Dementors are still searching for me, but they haven't a hope of finding me here. I am planning to allow some muggles to glimpse me soon, a long way from Hogwarts, so that the security on the castle will be lifted. There is something I never got around to telling you during our brief meeting. It was I who sent the firebolt. Crookshanks took the order to the owl office for me. I used your name, but told them to take the gold from my own Gringotts vault. Please consider it as 13 birthdays worth of presents from your godfather. I would also like to apologize for the fright I think I gave you that night last year when you left your uncle's house. I had only hoped to get a glimpse of you before starting my journey north, but I think the sight of me alarmed you. I am enclosing something else for you, which I think will make your next year at Hogwarts more enjoyable. If ever you need me, send word. Your owl will find me. I'll write again soon. Sirius. And on the second page it says, I, Sirius Black, Harry Potter's godfather, hereby give him permission to visit Hogsmeade on weekends. And the P.S. I thought your friend Ron might like to keep this owl. As it's my fault, he no longer has a rat.
Nice job, Sirius. That's good godfathering.
I mean, he literally thought through and answered all of the remaining questions, including Ron's pet.
Mm-hmm.
He took care of Hogsmeade. He took care of the broomstick.
It was definitely him that saw him at Magnolia Crescent when the night bus showed up.
Yes.
How did he get the firebolt?
Right.
Like all of these things. But I think my favorite little quirky line in there is, I'm setting this owl. I don't know if I trust him, but I hope he doesn't fall into the wrong hands. I just love
He's
mishandling owl.
Find.
like, that owl was intercepted. I just love seeing that idea of like, someone's out there with like a big butterfly net trying to catch owls with letters just to intercept
owls.
Right, to steal mail. The true villains in the world, those who steal mail. And in part of those disruptions, this is where we referenced a couple of chapters, or in, I think, an unrestricted section, that Hermione just cannot let it go that, I was right that it was Sirius Black sending it to you. And I think it's Ron that's just like, yeah, but it wasn't jinxed. Like, you were right for the wrong reasons.
Yes.
And Ron is still like, they're both wrong halfway. It's just great.
Yes.
I think it's funny.
I do. I think it's funny too. I would be Hermione in that situation. I knew it, but you knew it but I wasn't right, but I was right.
The answer was right. The reason and the intention, as far off as possible.
This is right.
My only other question for that letter: how does Ron justify to Molly Weasley that he now has an owl,
or how he lost his rat?
Right. I was in Transfiguration class and we were turning our rats or our pets into owls, and now I have an owl because I just didn't want a rat anymore.
But I don't want to do it again.
I didn't know how to undo it, and Hermione wouldn't tell me.
Ooh, throwing Hermione under the bus. There you go. See,
right?
That could work.
Yeah.
I was thinking,
and I would rather have an owl.
He showed up.
Yeah.
He adopted me.
He adopted me. The owl chooses the wizard.
That's right. And I just did.
Okay. We'll see if that works.
I saved up all of my monies.
I saved up all of my
two
sickles.
There you go. Hey, Luke.
Yes.
I think you've got some questions here for me.
I do. I'm going to set them on fire. You ready?
Yes.
Question 1. How does the Marauders map and the invisibility cloak all fit into Harry's pocket?
So this is a scene when he's with Lupin and Lupin gives them back to him. He has both of the things.
And he just pockets them both.
And he pockets... Yeah, what size are those pockets?
Well, we know they wear robes, right? Like cloaks and robes.
It's also June. I would assume probably not a cloak in June.
But the robes still like floor length, right?
Sure.
So if you have like a trench coat, which is what I'm comparing this to, right? Basically hangs to the floor. You have one giant pocket on the inside that goes like from your arm. You bat wing it open like Dracula, and then you just have like basically an inner lining that everything can fit in. So basically, like a lot of stuff, because it's like the full size of the robe. I mean, you could go all the way around if you really wanted to. It could be huge.
This brings me back to a point we've been harping on. Why doesn't he always have the map and the invisibility cloak in the ginormous, before now unmentioned pockets.
I mean, they're talking about pocketing their wands and things like that, but sure. I mean, I can manage that with the clothes that I wear if I really, had a reason to.
Well, and I'm thinking like maybe the invisibility cloak can be folded up fairly small and compactly, and maybe robes are more like cargo pants.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Instead of one big pocket, they have multiple pockets.
Yeah, or I mean, that could work. That could definitely work. Or instead of multiple pockets, it's one gigantic pocket. I love it.
Special thanks to this week's summary writer, Evelyn, because she suggested this question for us. So I hope that answers that for you.
In future, if anyone else out there has questions for specific chapters, send them in. We'll include them. I think that'd be a lot of fun to see if anyone else has burning questions that we can try to tackle together. I think that'd be a lot of fun. Question 2. What do you think about Snape being so dead set on having the Dementor's kiss applied so quickly? Like immediately before Dumbledore can get involved or change the way this is going down.
I think the faster it's done, then it can't be reversed. The more time between the decision and the act, the more chances something can go wrong. And he's right. Even a little bit of time was too long.
Well, there was almost zero time in between him saying that and him being gone. So actually, he was gone before he said that. So there was literally no time.
That is true, which is even better.
So now we know this whole book is a lot about time traveling. Yes. And there have been many times where, and we'll get into this more, but I just right now I'm thinking about it. It's funny that Ron is so focused on what Hermione is doing, and there's not enough time. And it's like italicized so often. The word time is italicized in this book just to be like, hey, we're talking about time. It's just
there's
funny.
Like a component about time here just to hint you all out.
Just to be heads up, just to foreshadow it blatantly. How could Snape think Harry had anything to do with Sirius being released? He was literally just with them minutes before this, right?
It's incredibly unreasonable. I think it comes down to Snape blames Harry for everything, and Harry was involved in the earlier stuff. Harry's the only student besides his little, trio of followers, but basically Harry, that knows about Sirius even being in the castle.
Mm-hmm. And having some reason for wanting him freed.
Exactly. So maybe that's it, except that Harry's on lockdown, except he's not wrong.
This is another side question. Do Snape or the other teachers know about the Time Turner? Or is that like McGonagall and Dumbledore only know?
Ooh, that's a good question.
Maybe we'll bring that to the full group discussion.
Maybe. I don't know. I always assumed it was just McGonagall and Dumbledore, not because they wanted to not tell the teachers, but because the less people know, the less likely the information will get out to the general public.
Okay.
I don't know.
Question 4. Trelawney's true prediction tally is 2 in Dumbledore's eyes. What was her other prediction? I've got to know.
That maybe she predicted like the winners of the last World Cup.
Okay. Or maybe like the weather one day.
I feel like it's got to be a little bigger than the weather.
Yeah.
And now the weather.
The weather.
Insert music here. Yeah, I'm thinking like a winner of some contest.
Okay, fair enough.
Okay.
Question 5. Last burning question of book 3. How could Harry be okay with saving Pettigrew's life? Do you think it's easy? Do you think he's right? How is Harry going to take that himself?
Because killing's always wrong. And I think Harry, as the victim of killing, as the only surviving victim of killing in this world, probably understands that better than anybody else, that there are major consequences to killing someone that you don't always know in the moment. But he knows because he's been raised without his parents, because he himself was the only person attempted to be killed and wasn't, and he knows what that's like. He just maybe understands those consequences a little better than most people. And so I don't think it's going to be a question. I think it's just, yeah, that's what you do. You don't kill the person. You tie them up, you knock them out, you turn them in, you don't kill the person.
And to quote Tyrion Lannister, death is so final. Life is so full of opportunities. Which is true. It's like, potentially there is chance for redemption.
Or they might catch him again and then Sirius gets free. Like, him being dead ends the story. Him being alive gives a chance for something else to happen.
Yes.
All right, Luke, let's jump into your chapter Superlatives. What was your favorite line?
All right, it's kind of a section. It's one of the big ones. And it's the very end of the book. It's a very good closing sequence here, and it starts with, "What's that?" he snarled, staring at the envelope Harry was still clutching in his hand. "If it's another form for me to sign, you've got another." "It's not," said Harry cheerfully. "It's a letter from my godfather." "Godfather?" sputtered Uncle Vernon. "You haven't got a godfather." "Yes, I have," said Harry brightly. "He was my mum and dad's best friend." He's a convicted murderer, but he's broke out of wizard prison and he's on the run. He likes to keep in touch with me though. Keep up with my news. Check if I'm happy. It's just great. It's just like, yeah, I do. And he's literally the runaway convicted murderer that you were so worried about walking up Privet Drive at the beginning last summer.
And if you think about the very last time Harry spoke with Vernon, it was, you come back here and put her right. No!
That's not happening.
So it was kind of a big in your face then. And now I'm coming back with another bigger one. Yeah, my convicted murderer godfather wants me to be happy. Hi. Happy summer.
Yeah, let's do this thing.
Yep.
We're in this together.
Yep. And I have the upper hand.
Yeah, absolutely. It's nice to see him have some power here.
Yes.
What was your favorite line?
My favorite line was actually yours, but I had to pick another one because you were in charge of this episode. So I let you win. Actually, you had it in first, apparently. I don't know. It was a whole debate, people, and he won. So I had to pick another favorite line, and this one's pretty good. And it's Ron with his new owl, and he turns to Crookshanks and says, "What do you reckon?" Ron asked the cat. "Definitely an owl?" Crookshanks purred. "That's good enough for me," said Ron happily. "He's mine." I like he has Crookshanks' stamp of approval for the new bird. I feel like they should do that from now on. Run all animals and new people by Crookshanks.
Clearly seems to have a knack for knowing things when they're out of place.
Yes.
I mean, he knew Scabbers was bad news, but he knew Sirius the dog was good news.
Also true. Who was your chapter MVP?
I gotta say, I struggled in this chapter. I don't know if there's like a real easy standout chapter MVP. This is one of those end of book wrap up chapters. There's a lot of micro scenes.
Yep.
You know, I thought Lupin was good in his discussion with Harry. Snape's not a chapter MVP at all. Dumbledore has his Dumbledorian things here.
Sorry, Dumbledorian.
Dumbledorian quotes. But I don't know if it's something that really tops what Sirius did in his letter. I feel like it has to be Sirius here. And I know that I'll let you kind of expound upon why, but I think it's got to be Sirius.
Well, I think it goes with what we talked about in his letter. He's not even in the chapter, and yet it was all the feels. Because he's my honorable mention too, by the way. He gets a double win this time. And he just got it.
Yeah. He answered all of the big questions.
He wrapped it all up with a nice big bow.
A lot of the simple little questions too that would have been nagging if they didn't get touched on. And I just feel like for what he's gone through, not even just in this book, but the past 12 years, to see that he still has such a strong head on his shoulders and still has Harry's best interest at heart, he's just a great character.
I agree. So we are wrapped up for chapter 22 and the entire book.
Yeah, book 3.
Right.
In
Good
the
job.
books. Book 3 in the books.
3 down, 4 to go.
A lot longer books.
Much longer books. The first 3 books took about 6 months each. The rest of them will take about a year.
Each.
It'll be great.
Yeah, it will.
In the meantime, find us on social media. We're on Twitter. That's our favorite place at Not Named Podcast. Send us your digital owls at thepodcastthat@gmail.com, or you can always go to our website, thepodcastthat.com.
Subscribe, like, rate, leave comments on iTunes and YouTube and any other podcatcher you can find us on. I think we're on all of them. If you find one that we're not on, let us know. We'll make it happen. Special thank you to our Imaginary Legion summary, Evelyn. Another special thank you to our wonderful patrons from patreon.com/stayimaginary, especially Bailey, our Praetorian Guard. We appreciate it. Thank you for your support and keeping this ship a-moving.
Join us for our next episode, which is in 2 weeks, some amount of weeks.
Which is in the near future.
We're going to take a bit of a break, and then we're going to bring you 2 weeks worth of our end of book episodes. So first we have our full book recap, and then we have our end of book spectacular where the whole team comes back in. Join us then.
Stay imaginary.
Thanks.
Hi, I'm Luke from the podcastthat.com family of podcasts, and we want you to join the Imaginary Legion on Patreon today. Our podcasts celebrate all things imaginative. We dive into the mythical, the fantastical, sometimes scary, but always wonder-filled worlds created by incredible storytellers. This Patreon is designed to support all of our shows, including our Harry Potter podcast, the podcast that must not be named, our HBO Game of Thrones podcast, the podcast that drinks and knows things, and also our Stephen King's It podcast, the podcast that floats down here. And also all shows produced by thepodcastthat.com in the future. So here's where you ask yourself, okay, but what's in it for me by joining the Imaginary Legion? And that's a pretty fair question. Check out the Legion ranks to see how you can be rewarded with Legion exclusive content, monthly giveaways, access to our Slack team, and merchandise clubs. Your contribution allows us to bring you better shows, new content, and the possibility to cover even more of your favorite stories in the future. From the podcastthat.com family of podcasts, thank you. And we cordially invite you to join in our mission to always stay imaginary.